Cynthia Bullock is the co-founder and executive director of Harley's Hope Foundation, the organization sponsoring the Hope Series workshops. Cynthia has been involved in animal welfare for well over 20 years and considers this work her life's passion. She holds a master's degree in nonprofit management and serves as adjunct faculty in the MNM program at Regis University. Cynthia's workshop is entitled Create a Pet Plan for Life. She is co-presenting with Gale Caron. Gale Caron is the shelter manager for the Humane Society of the Pikes Peak region. She has worked in animal welfare for the past 16 years, 13 of those years spent with the Humane Society. She took a brief detour from her chosen path while attending college, but returned to working with animals afterwards, and since then has never left the field.
Good morning, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. So we are going to start talking about choosing a pet that's best for your home. So that's not just choosing a dog. It truly is choosing what type of critter, dog or cat or rabbit, anything that is most appropriate to be in your environment. There are three primary factors to consider when deciding what type of pet is best for you. Of course, it's cost. Space is a big consideration, as well as the time you have to give to that pet. That's going to be very important in selecting the right animal for your home and for your environment. Cost. So how much is it to adopt or purchase? Or have any of you gotten that free pet ever? Yeah? Was it free? No, they're not. There's no such thing. It's very true. No such thing as a free anything. So of course the adoption or the purchase was, quite frankly, even if you're looking at a higher cost pet, that's the least of your financial obligation for this animal for the rest of its life. What is its setup cost as well? We have some examples of some different setups here for some of the small and furries, some of the caged pets, not an area to skimp on. And then continued care, toys and other play items, and quality food. And really we should talk a minute about quality food. Everybody has a budget that they have to work within, but this is an area too that you really don't want to skimp on. It's just very important. You should be eating quality food, fruits, vegetables, etc., things that are good for you. So should your pet. And there absolutely is a difference. And reading that label is going to be so important, and then understanding what that label means as well. Your veterinarian is going to be a great asset for that. The internet is full of information as well to make sure you understand at what life stage your pet is at and what is most appropriate for that pet. And a lot of your different food carriers, your Petco, PetSmarts, areas like that, they have staff that are quite knowledgeable on appropriate food items as well. So cost, of course, there's veterinary care, although I think people don't think about that when they're getting a young, healthy animal. They don't think necessarily about what veterinary care is going to look like down the road. And just understanding what the cost of a routine yearly physical and vaccines can cost. And it's generally upwards of close to $200. And that's just maintenance care. Who cares for the pet when you're out of town? Are you having just a neighborhood teenager come over and feed and water? No. Are you hiring a pet sitter? Are you using a boarding facility? You know, someone's going to have to take care of them while you're gone, and there's going to be a cost associated with that as well. And then if you are choosing that a dog is a correct companion for you, obedience classes. We, as human beings, go through so many years of school, but too many dog owners are put off by having to go to one obedience class, let alone 2 or 3. And really they should be going through some sort of classes throughout their adolescence, puppy up into adolescence. It's well worth it. Space. How much room do you have to fill the needs of the pet? This may literally be your home or your yard. Are you looking to adopt a cat? And it's an indoor kitty cat, and is your home equipped for that? Are you ready for that cat to be in every aspect of your home? Because they will be, unless you close doors. It can be an appropriate area of your home for the type of environment or cage. This is not a small environment. So you need to have an area for a setup like this to exist within your home. if choosing a dog, the energy level of the dog is important, if not more important than the size of the dog. A lot of people think a smaller dog is easier. I can assure you a Jack Russell Terrier is not easier than a St. Bernard. Their energy level is extremely high, and they have different needs that way. You know, obviously Jack Russell has different needs than St. Bernard, and they're harder and easier in different aspects, but when it comes to energy level, smaller is not necessarily easier. So understanding the type of dog you're looking at and the needs that that dog is going to need to be met in order to be a sound companion. So cages, tanks, and aquariums. So these guys are forced to live in environments that they wouldn't naturally live in. Okay, so think about that if you're thinking of a small, furry, or a bird or a reptile of sorts. They would not choose to live in such a small area. So make sure you're getting, quite frankly, the biggest and the best setup for them, as well as some time outside of their environments. Setting up a playpen, putting up baby gates, so that way your guinea pigs or your rabbits can be out. Having a ball like we have going around the room for the rat to run around in is just a great way for them to get more enrichment, have more activity in their lives. Keeping their environments clean is so important as well. These guys get cleaned every day here at the shelter, every day, which is more than I think would occur in most homes, unfortunately. But they really do, again, my food, my water, my litter pan, my sleeping is all right here. So we really need to make sure that we're paying attention to that, providing enrichment within the cage and then outside of the cage. I am hopeful that people are progressing to being past the days of the rabbit hutch in the backyard, because that's truly about as unstimulating as can be, especially because animals left in the backyard, regardless of what they are often forgotten in the backyard. So having them in your homes where they can really be an interactive pet. And you can get quite a bit of enjoyment out of these guys. These rats are so social and so outgoing, and they seek you out, as you can tell by Oreo going around. He's going from person to person. He's not trying to hide or get away from everybody. So they really are a fabulous little companion to have, especially when you're looking for maybe your first pet for a child. So how much time do you or your family have to provide for the basic needs of the pet? So they're going to include items such as grooming, cage cleaning, poop patrol, feeding, health checks, physicals to make sure the pet is healthy. So making sure you get that scheduled on the calendar. So if they're able to be cleaned every day, that's fantastic. And truly they are able to be cleaned every day. But taking the time every day can be a little bit more challenging to get their cages set up the way they should be. But even, you know, just keeping the litter box scooped for a cat to the level that a cat would like its litter box scooped, right? You kind of like to have clean facilities. So do the pets. They also like to have clean facilities as well. And then, of course, keeping your yard neat and tidy if your choice is a dog. In feeding, really looking for appropriate food items. It's not enough just to feed a pellet diet to some of these different critters, supplementing them with the appropriate fruits and vegetables. Sometimes they need additional vitamins as well. So make sure you educate yourself on what their needs are. Time, mental and physical activity. Do you guys think these guys still need some mental and physical activity? Absolutely. Many of you may be dog and or cat owners, and they're right front and center typically with you, begging for that mental and physical activity. Or you start to see they maybe are getting a little mischievous because you're not quite meeting their mental or physical needs. So across the board, all pets require some level of enrichment and activity to keep them healthy, both physically and mentally. And figuring out how you spend your free time. You know, if you are someone who wants to just kind of hang out on the couch and read a book, well, a young dog might not be a great companion. An older dog might be perfect. Same with a middle-aged cat. A kitten, well, they could still be a little bit of a handful for you with that. But just thinking, you know, it doesn't always have to start out as a puppy or a kitten. It can start out as a nice mid-age animal, of which there are plenty that need homes that might fit into your lifestyle a little bit better. You may decide, I really want a dog. However, I also really don't want to hike every day. So starting out with a middle-aged animal may be the right choice for you.
Okay, so after you've gone through all of the steps that Gale has outlined and you've chosen your new best friend, it's time to choose their new best friend, which besides you is their veterinarian. And it never ceases to amaze me how we get calls at Harley's Hope from people who have very sick animals and are seeking assistance. And when I'll ask them, who's your veterinarian and when is the last time your animal had a wellness exam, they'll say to me, oh, well, I've had my dog or my cat 8, 9, 10 years. They've never been sick. They've never needed to go to the veterinarian. Well, the problem is you often can't tell when an animal is sick until the very end, and those symptoms become impossible to ignore. So this very sick dog or cat that they're bringing to me could have heart disease, could have advanced cancer, diabetes, kidney failure that could have been detected during an annual exam, and that could have been treated a lot earlier in the game. So we very strongly encourage and now require our clientele to have a relationship with a veterinarian. There are a lot of different ways you can find the right vet for your family. Certainly word of mouth is a great way to go about it. If you have friends or family members that have animals, that have veterinarians, they can fill you in on the information that the vet will not share with you, like, is the front office staff friendly? Are they compassionate? If you call with a sick animal and need an appointment, are they going to accommodate you and fit you in right away? If you don't know people with animals, you can certainly do an internet search or check the yellow pages, but there are also some very good websites out there that exist to help you find the right vet. The first one, healthypet.com, if you remember in the previous workshop, she mentioned the American Animal Hospital Association. That is what this website is all about. It will direct you to clinics that have earned that accreditation. Veterinarians.com and inyourarea.net are websites that you can go to and plug in your city and state or your zip code, and it will pull up a listing of doctors in your area. And ACVIM is the American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine. So if you're looking for a specialist, a veterinary oncologist, a veterinary ophthalmologist, this is the body that teaches and bestows diplomate status on those specialists. When you find a veterinarian that you are interested in, it's probably a good idea to meet with them and to conduct an interview just like you would if you're choosing a new doctor for yourself or a new pediatrician for your child. Find out if your philosophies mesh, because if you're talking to a veterinarian who is old school, very traditional in their treatment, but you're somebody who believes in the power of nutrition, holistic medicine, exercise, that is not going to be a happy relationship for either party. You also want to find out, will they work with you during difficult times? Because we have had several clients contact us and say, I've gone to this clinic for 5 or 6 years, but now I'm unemployed. Now I'm experiencing financial difficulties, and they will not see my animal without payment up front. So that's an important thing to find out early on. You might also want to ask, if you have pet insurance, if they will accept that and allow you to make payment when you receive reimbursement from the insurance company. What did I do?
I'm not sure.
There we go. Okay, and locating your nearest emergency clinic is almost as important as having a day veterinarian. We all know that emergencies tend to happen at night, on the weekends, on holidays, when your vet clinic is not open. You can certainly do an internet search in your area, or you can go to those websites I mentioned before, and instead of plugging in information for a day clinic, specifically seek out a 24-hour clinic or veterinary emergency clinic. Here in the Springs, we're fortunate to have 3 emergency clinics. There are also urgent care facilities in Monument and emergency clinics in Pueblo. Another good way to find the closest emergency clinic is to ask your veterinarian, because certain veterinarians want to work with certain emergency clinics, so it makes sense to do that. And we recommend that you do this as soon as you have an animal in the home, or if you already have pets and don't know your closest emergency clinic, do it now. Don't wait for an emergency when time is of the essence. Get that information and plug that contact info into your cell phone and have it close to your home phone as well.
So training your new pet, as important as a veterinarian is, there are some other folks that need to be involved with you in your pet in order to make a nice lifelong match. Make sure everybody stays happy. Training is so essential, and it assists greatly with that realistic expectations. Can we expect to take a kitten home and give him run of a 2,000 square foot house and have him know that the litter box is on the 3rd floor, down in the basement, in the closet, in the corner? That's not a realistic expectation. So we need to think about the age, the type of animal we are dealing with, and then make some accommodations towards what those animals' needs are. Regardless of the species, all pets are going to need time to adjust to a new environment, no matter what they are. Consistency, all family members must agree on what is or is not allowed. We can see some really rough behavior concerns when consistency is not followed within the home environment, because it creates a very confused pet. An unsupervised pet can get into lots and lots of trouble. They do not know what is safe and what isn't safe. Rewarding the positive behavior that you see will result in that positive behavior occurring more often. And then do keep in mind that at times punishment can be seen as some form of a reward to a pet. The dog that's barking outside and maybe spends too much time outside and not enough time with his people, any sort of interaction that dog gets is going to be seen as a positive. Even if it's something we're trying to be as a negative, you need to put yourself from that animal's perspective. So hollering at that dog, the dog's like, oh, I barked and a human came outside. There was some interaction. Better yet is to make sure that dog has ample exercise and human time and mental stimulation to reduce that barking. Basic tools. Again, I can't say enough about exercise and mental stimulation, again, across the board. If you want to provide a quality life, like you're like, well, what kind of exercise or mental stimulation? It's a rabbit, it's in a cage. They need it more than anybody, quite frankly, these small caged animals. They really need to have some options for outlet of exercise, as well as great chew items. They love to chew just as much as any dog loves to chew, so making sure that they have great items to keep themselves busy. Remember, a tired puppy is going to sleep, but a bored one is going to chew on something you don't want it to chew on. A busy kitten climbs all over the place, but a redirected kitten plays and then sleeps. And redirection for all of these guys is really important. Whenever any pet you have is doing something that you feel is inappropriate, redirecting them onto an appropriate item is very important. And that may mean you have to take some time and engage at that time with your pet as well. An unsupervised bunny may chew cords, but a rabbit with chew toys will be entertained for quite some time. And again, I can't talk enough about how much these guys really do love to chew an awful lot, so making sure they have appropriate outlets for that. If you're choosing a dog, we should talk about obedience classes, although I'm going to talk a little bit about cat obedience too, believe it or not. They're so much more than to sit down and stay. They're really, frankly, a tool to train you more than the dog. It's teaching you how to humanely interact and teach the dog in a positive manner to get the results that you want. They're a great way for you to bond with your new pet. All family members should participate. What a wonderful option for children. As a mom, and my daughter does have her own dog that she's been responsible for and has had to take through classes and whatnot, and to see that relationship just blossom and develop, and that confidence coming from my daughter in handling, her dog, and just in being around other dogs too. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to establish with her at a young age that she'll carry on with her for the rest of her life. And that's really important. Lack of socialization for dogs can cause significant behavior problems. Huge. It's why we're here as the Humane Society, quite frankly. The majority of the dogs we have had very poor socialization. They haven't experienced too much in their lives, and they certainly can have some behavior issues that result from that. Those behavior issues, often in the right family that's willing to take some appropriate steps, can be resolved quite quickly. And as I just said, we're full of dogs that have not received the appropriate training. Pet-proofing your home as well, very, very, very important. The best trained pet in the world still doesn't understand what is and is not appropriate to put in their mouths. They don't understand that antifreeze is poisonous. They just think it tastes really, really, really good. So we need to be very cautious and very careful with the different hazards we may have for a variety of pets within our home environment. So electrical cords are, you know, kind of across the board for dogs, cats, rabbits. If you have your guinea pigs running around too, we want to make sure that they're covered. You can always cover them with those rubber mats that make it more difficult for them to pick up and chew. I'm blanking on the name so you don't get zapped. Surge protectors, thank you. Surge protectors are wonderful things for electrical cords too, because heaven forbid. Heavy objects. Kitties like to get up on top of everything. Dogs running through the house, anything like that. So if you have something heavy that maybe should be secured to the wall as opposed to freestanding so it doesn't get knocked down. Christmas is around the corner. You know, think Christmas tree and what you have in your home that may either like to climb the tree or is going to bump into the tree and cause different problems that way as well. Plants, also very important to know which ones are safe and which ones are toxic, and you can visit the ASPCA.org for a complete list of those toxic plants. That is actually a really big problem, again, with Christmas coming up, and poinsettias. That's one of the major plants, and I know my cats, if there's anything green around, they're certainly getting into it, so we have to be very aware and very careful. Cleaning solutions, up high. Baby locks are wonderful things. You may have a dog smart enough to still get through the baby lock, but get started with baby locks, but they should be up high where the animals actually can't get to them at all, because very hazardous, not safe. Human foods and over-the-counter medications. This is a big one, because a lot of people think, well, I could take ibuprofen for my aches and pains, so let me go ahead and, you know, my dog is older and he's getting a little sore, so let me go ahead and give him some ibuprofen, which quite frankly is not safe at all for your animal. So it's very important to understand what you can and can't give. And there's just yesterday evening at dinner time, we were talking about all the foods that are not safe for dogs to ingest. And most animals, you know, avocados, grapes, onions, dark chocolate is the one we all know, but there's ample other items that really are not safe for your pets to be ingesting. So for sure, make sure and follow up with Harley Hope's website under the resource tab, and they'll give you a nice big list that you can hang right on your fridge and have at hand. In case of accidental poisoning, contact your vet emergency room or the ASPCA poison hotline as well. These are all great numbers and information just to have. My fridge holds everything, so to have it right there on your fridge handy for you. Outdoor hazards as well, broken glass or sharp metal. And sharp metal, that edging for your lawn, so many people's dogs get cut on their feet on that metal edging for your lawn. I highly encourage you to switch that out if you can to the rolled top plastic, rubber type. Really a lot of foot injuries with that sharp metal edging. Yard tools, you know, make sure they're up, locked away in the garage or in a tool shed where they're out of the way where the animal can get into harm with them. Pesticides. If you're, you know, cat or dog or whichever are out in the yard and you're spraying pesticides in whatever garden, they're also being exposed to that pesticide. So if it's a pet area, really look for some organic products. At the very least, read your label warnings and understand how long you need to wait before pets can even go back into that area. Keep in mind, they're walking through that stuff, they're licking their paws, they're licking their coat, they're licking the grass, they're eating the grass, some of them, as well, where they're truly ingesting that, so be very careful with pesticides. I think everyone is aware that antifreeze can really cause such a significant problem, so please make sure it is up and away and in a safe place. Inadequate fencing or no fencing at all. You know, maybe you thought a dog was a good idea, and maybe you thought something like a husky was an even better idea, and now you get home and you realize your 4-foot chain link fence is not cutting it. So you're really going to have to develop a different plan if that's the dog that you're going to have for the next 10, 12, 15 years to make sure that you're doing what you can to keep that dog safe. But animals can certainly get injured on inappropriate or fencing that is not safe.
All right, well, worst case scenario, even the best trained pet, healthy pet, living in a pet-proofed home can still get into trouble. And if you find yourself with an emergency on your hands, would you know what to do? Would you know what to do if your dog or your cat's heart stopped beating? Most of us are familiar with Red Cross training for first aid and CPR for humans, but many people don't realize that they also offer training for pets. And Harley's Hope is one of the licensed providers here in Southern Colorado. We do teach classes here at the Humane Society. And since we've just begun training their community animal response team volunteers, we will probably increase the number of classes that we offer. So pet first aid and CPR training is not intended to turn you into a veterinarian. It's intended to give you tools to provide immediate and temporary assistance until you can either get your animal to professional care or until a veterinarian can get to you. And if you are interested in training, you can check out the Harley's Hope website. Some of the things that we cover in class include what's normal for your animal, and that may seem rather simplistic, but if you have a crisis on your hand and you call your vet, they may ask you, what is your cat's heart rate? What is your dog's respiration rate? What is their temperature? And if you don't know that the temperature range for a cat and dog is between 100 and 102.5, how are you going to know that anything below 100 or above 104 indicates an emergency? Get your animal to a vet right away. So it's important to know what is normal for your animal. When people call Harley's Hope and want assistance, some of the things I ask them are they still eating? Are they still drinking? Are they still pooping and peeing okay? What's their energy level like? Because all of those answers can help indicate whether we need to get this animal to a veterinarian right away, or maybe the dog is just having an off day. Other things that you learn is you'll get to work on mannequins like Casper here. So you'll learn where to take their pulse, and that's what this is. You can actually feel the femoral pulse in the mannequin. You'll learn proper placement of the hands for CPR compressions and how to do rescue breathing, not just on a dog this size, but on cats, on miniature breeds, and on giant breed dogs as well. You'll also learn basic wound care, like Sylvester here. He doesn't have anything seriously wrong, but as Gale mentioned, with the sharp metal and the broken glass, oftentimes animals suffer injuries to their pads, and if you've ever experienced that, you know that they bleed quite heavily. And if you aren't able to properly bandage that wound, you may find yourself taking a trip to the emergency room. Some of the other things that we cover, including how to treat animals for shock, how to restrain an animal that you need to medicate or you need to take their temperature. And if you've ever taken a cat's temperature, you know that you have to use some pretty aggressive restraint techniques. They're not just going to sit there and take it. You'll also learn what to do if an animal gets hit by a car and you need to transport them safely so that you don't aggravate the injuries. And we also learn what goes into a pet first aid kit. And people are surprised at the concept of having a separate first aid kit for an animal, but there are things in there that you would not use on a human. For instance, styptic powder for nails that are torn out and that will not stop bleeding, different things like that. So we recommend that you take the training if at all possible. It will really help you and could possibly save your pet's life.
So one more way to ensure your pet's safety and well-being is to ensure that they are wearing identification. That's so very important. So we're going to talk a little bit about lost pets. So we receive thousands of stray animals every year. In 2012, we received 6,181 stray cats, 9,345 stray dogs, and then 300 other were received as strays. Out of those strays coming through the door, 4,953 dogs, 397 cats, and 45 others were found and reclaimed by their families. And that's fabulous, but do we notice quite a bit of a discrepancy between our dogs getting back to their families and our cats getting back to their families? So, I mean, that's unfortunate to have such a low reclaim rate on our kitty cats. The community needs to do much better at keeping their pets at home, particularly in the case of cats. At the very least, make sure that collar and tag and or microchip, we love both, is on each of your animal's And it doesn't matter if your cat is a strictly indoor cat, they still really need that identification because accidents happen. And then a lot of folks believe, well, my cat does go outside and I'm so worried he's gonna get hung up on something, so I don't put a collar on him. Well, if you feel that strongly about it, then I really encourage you to make sure that your cat has a microchip. Although there are some options such as breakaway collars, and that means you'll be replacing collars and tags fairly frequently as well. But it sure does pay off in the long run when you know that if your cat ends up not coming home one night, that there's some mechanism on that kitty to help him get back home to you through whether it's the Humane Society or a Good Samaritan who has found your cat and can call you and inform you that they have your kitty. We have a full-time staff person dedicated specifically to helping with the lost and found pets that we have within our, not just our organization, but our community, because a lot of people call us having found a pet, but they hold them at their homes. So we run that database through here. The website has photos of stray pets, which is updated every hour. If you lose your pet, do not wait. Contact the shelter immediately. You can also go online. About 6 months ago, we started doing online lost pet reports as well. So you don't have to come all the way down to the shelter to at least do that initial report, but we sure do encourage you to get here as soon as possible because nothing takes the place of walking through the shelter to see if your pet is here. Photos online are great, but being here in person is so much more important and aiding you to find your pet. Microchipping your pet increases their chance of making it home as well. One thing on microchipping though is please either A, make sure you register it to begin with. A lot of folks get their microchips through the veterinarians, and I'm not sure if there's an assumption made that your veterinarian is going to register it for you. They are not going to register it for you. You then need to follow up and register it. And then if you move, you need to make sure and update your new information. One of our greatest frustrations is we're excited to find a microchip, but then we actually can't trace that microchip because it doesn't go to any current information. So, and that's really unfortunate when that occurs. So please keep that information up to date. Okay, pet evacuations, disasters. We certainly have dealt with some disasters, haven't we? So this is a really important topic to talk about. 2 summers in a row with some pretty fierce fires and now the flooding concerns that are probably going to be around with us for quite some time. It's more important than ever to make sure you have a pet evacuation disaster preparedness plan. A lot of times I know a lot of folks are familiar with what they need to have for themselves, but you need to think about every pet within your home and making sure that you have an option for them as well. You want to make sure you have pet medications and current veterinary records, leashes, harnesses, crates, carriers as well. Different types of caging like this for your other types of critters. Current photos of you and your pets. And there's a reason why we're asking for it to be of you and your pets. I think any of you that were involved in any of these disasters realize they are incredibly hectic and can be very confusing. And it's very, very helpful as the folks trying to reunite pets that may have gotten lost. If you come in with a photo of you with your pet, we know for sure you are the owner of that animal. We have rock solid proof right in front of us, even if we don't have our computer system database to trace everything to, okay? Food and water for at least 3 days. Grooming and cleaning supplies, because where you might be, you're definitely going to want to have some poop bags and paper towels and safe cleaning solutions to have with you as well. And then any bedding or toys to help keep them a little bit more comfortable in a pretty difficult situation. Evacuating large animals or a herd of animals require a lot of planning. And we certainly dealt with a tremendous amount of that this past year as well. So make sure you have transport available or know where you can obtain it on short notice, and that's really important. If you have 5 horses and you don't have a trailer, it's going to be very difficult to get those 5 horses out. We have a trailer, but we have a lot of people calling to say, we need our horses pulled, we need our cattle pulled, we need our whatever pulled. So we're one entity with a trailer. So you really need to be prepared and have an option to get your animals out. Identify family or friends who can board your animals, your large animals or your small animals. Know local organizations that can rescue and house displaced large animals. Make an evacuation kit with leads, halters, and first aid kits, again, large animal, and then keep copies of your ownership or brand paperwork. Very important.
Okay, so as we've learned up to now, having a companion animal is a huge physical, emotional, and financial responsibility as well as a pleasure, but it's a responsibility that many pet parents are not prepared to undertake, especially the financial portion. So I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about creating a pet care fund to ensure you can provide your animal with care when they need it, not when it's convenient to you. According to petfinder.com, the average cost of caring for a cat can be anywhere from $370 to over $5,000 in the first year, and then the figures go down slightly for each year thereafter. For dogs, it's significantly higher, anywhere from $766 to over $10,000 for the first year. And these figures do include, of course, routine veterinary care, food, adoption fees, toys, grooming, fencing, emergency vet care, and of course the reason that dogs are higher, as Gale mentioned, fencing is very important. If you adopt a dog and you don't have a fenced yard, you may be putting out a huge outlay of cash right from the very beginning to make sure you can contain them. Some of the ways that you can pay for pet care is certainly, if you're like the average American, you have 4 or 5 credit cards. If you can designate one of those for pet care, that's a good idea. You can also apply for Care Credit, and if you're not familiar with Care Credit, it's a credit card that is restricted to a certain use. So you can get one restricted to veterinary care, you can get one that's restricted to human health care expenses as well. If you don't have credit, you need to create a fund and you need to add to it. And it can be as simple as hosting a garage sale, maybe go in with friends who are in the same boat, have a multi-family garage sale. Those same friends and families who cannot loan you cash when you're dealing with an emergency probably have items laying around the house or the attic that they would be willing to donate to the cause. And then adding to it, we'll cover that in just a moment, but you need to make sure that you are adding to it a little bit each month. Or you can look into purchasing pet insurance or a wellness plan. Like everything else in life, there are pros and cons to pet insurance. Some of the pros include that you now have a lot of options to choose from. 10 years ago, there were maybe a few pet insurance companies, and now it's like everybody's jumped on the bandwagon, including Best Friends Animal Society. They now have their own insurance program. You can find basic plans for as little as $10 a month, but keep in mind the old saying, you get what you pay for. A plan that's going to cost you $10 a month is probably not going to cover a lot. And lastly, you can save a great deal of money. If you've had an animal in the emergency room, even with something like a broken leg, you not only have the emergency room costs, but you're going to be referred to the orthopedic specialist. And to have orthopedic surgery to correct a broken leg can cost upwards of $2,700 to $3,000. So insurance can reimburse as much as 90%, so you can get a lot of that back. The downside to insurance is that it's reimbursement based. So like I mentioned earlier, you want to check with your veterinarian to see if they will accept proof that you have insurance and will go ahead and provide services and let you pay when that reimbursement comes in. A lot of clinics, especially emergency clinics, are going to require full payment at the time those services are rendered. You also have to do paperwork to request your payment and then wait for the check. And you have to pay your monthly premiums whether you use it or not. If you are interested in exploring insurance, this is a chart that one of our network providers did for her veterinary group. And you can use that as a template for your own research. So you'll see here that she has done a comparison across 4 different plans, and she has compared the same features from whether or not there's an annual limit, or whether there's an enrollment fee, whether or not they cover specialty and ER care, which is mainly why most of us want pet insurance. Do they cover wellness? Most do not, so you may want to look at a wellness plan with your veterinarian. Prescription diet, that may seem not very important, but more and more veterinarians are going to using prescription food to deal with common problems like kidney failure, diabetes, or hyperthyroidism in cats. And so if you are providing your animal strictly with prescription food, that can add up quite quickly. You want to look at deductibles. Is the deductible per incident or is it per year? Is it for the lifetime? And what's the waiting period? So if you register for your insurance, do you have to wait 90 days before it kicks in? We know that if we sign up for insurance and something's going to happen like 2 days later, so you want to make sure when you actually have coverage. Does it cover hereditary or congenital conditions? And down at the bottom there, you'll see hip dysplasia coverage. If you are adopting a dog that's a breed that is prone to hip dysplasia, that's something you definitely want to make sure you have, because surgery for that or treatment for that can be quite costly. And then you also want to look at your deductibles and your premiums. And so you can see at the very bottom line, the deductibles are all pretty standard at $100, but again, is it per incident or per year? And the premiums range for $31.59 for Trupanion, all the way up to $98.41 for Embrace. So you do want to do your homework, make sure you know what it's going to cost you. Even if you have insurance, you have to find a way to pay for that. And like most people, we all have bad habits or luxuries that we can cut back on. You need to take a look at where your money is going. So these are just some examples, because a lot of the clients that we worked with initially, we would go and do a home check after the fact, and the apartment would reek of cigarette smokes. And there would be, 3 packs worth of cigarette butts in the ashtray. And it would really upset me, because I'm thinking, well, wait a second, there's money that's literally going up in smoke that could have gone towards the animal's care. I've been told that cigarettes now cost more than $5 a pack, but as a smoker, I have no clue. But 1 pack over the course of the year, $260, that will cover a wellness exam. That will cover a basic blood panel, possibly some vaccinations depending upon where you go. If you're a Starbucks fan, you know that you can drop a small fortune in the course of 1 week. Magazines, my personal bad habit, can really add up. And even moving down to the bottom, going to the movies, that's something we all enjoy doing. But now for a family of 3, you're looking at $21 a pop just to get in the door. If you go to the concession stand, there goes your mortgage payment for the month. So you can see that just going to the theater once a month over the course of the year and buying snacks, you've got almost $500 invested. And that could cover a basic trip to the emergency room. It wouldn't cover surgery, but it could certainly cover getting you in the door and paying for a lot of diagnostic testings. So we do need to look at this. And if we're not willing to give up these luxuries or bad habits, we need to ask ourselves why we have a pet, or whether or not we should have that pet in our home. And the last segment I want to talk about is a topic not very many people want to think about, and that is end of life. And in this instance, I'm not talking about your pet's end of life. We all know our options for euthanasia, cremation, and burial. I'm talking about the end of your life and what happens if your pet lives beyond you. Gale, you can back me up on this, but animals are still seen as property. And so if you pass away and you have not made arrangements, chances are your animal's going to be turned into the shelter, and the shelter's going to do their very best to rehome them. But if your animal has special needs, if they're very old, if they have serious medical issues, they have behavioral issues, their chances of being adopted may not be as great as that little puppy or kitten. So what you want to do is you want to retain control over what happens to your pet after you're gone. One way to do that is to make advance arrangements with family members or friends. If you don't have family members or friends that are willing or able to take your pet in, it becomes a little bit more difficult, but not impossible. You want to start checking with your local rescues, your local shelters, your local animal sanctuaries to see if they have programs in place to help people out. With Harley's Hope, we have, I think, 3 clients now who live alone, who have come to us and said, when the time comes, would you be willing to take our animals? And so we do have arrangements on the books with them to take their animals in and to find permanent homes. If you're going to do that, once you've chosen your caregiver, you want to create a pet trust in your will, not only outlining the guardian, but outlining the level of care that you want your animal to receive. If you aren't familiar with the terminology pet trust, basically what it is it's a legally binding agreement between the pet guardian and the person that they have named to succeed them, to take care of their animal. And a pet trust can also take place during your lifetime. So for instance, if you know that you have a disease that is going to become progressively worse to the point where you are incapacitated, you can set up a trust now while you're still alive for someone to help you care for your pet. Most of us think it takes effect only after death, but it can be during your life as well. As of last year, 46 states and Washington, D.C. actually have laws on the books regarding pet trusts. And you can find out about your laws, your state's specific law, by visiting a good old ASPCA.org, which is a wealth of information. They actually list all the laws per state. So if you live in Colorado, you can find out, are there limitations? Will the trust be in effect throughout the animal's life, or is the trust only good for 5 years? So that information is available for you there. If you want to get more information on creating a pet trust, there are a lot of good resources. ASPCA.org has a whole section on their website that explains pet trusts, how they work, and has recommended verbiage. Animallaw.info also has the legal information you may wish to find out about trusts. And LegalZoom.com, how many of you are familiar with that website? So you know that LegalZoom.com allows you to go and access actual legal forms and templates for forms. They do have a template on the website for a pet trust, and for $39 you can go on and you can create this trust yourself. So it doesn't have to be a huge expensive deal, but it's critical to ensure that your pet is providing the care that you would give them if you were still alive.